Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I love the hat, I must say.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's part of the branding, you know.
Exactly that.
Is it Mel?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, nice and easy.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. How can I help you today?
Likewise. Um, well, it's a bit of a weird one, right? I've been an estate agent for about 2 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and to be fair, I've had absolutely enough of it. I've just had enough of, um, the maximum amount of work you have to put in and the minimal amount you get out of it, and etc. So ultimately, I was like, do you know what? You have the knowledge, you absolutely love what you do, so it's about time you do something for yourself.
Sure.
Um, which is obviously at that point when I started to look into like further research and all this stuff and
Hmm.
figuring out like the rent to rent method, the Airbnb method, and etc. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, let me look into this.
Hmm.
However, of course, it came with all of its sort of confusion and all of that sort of stuff.
Of
So
course.
yeah, I mean, I have a good friend of mine who we've been looking into everything together, and she's been following you for a long time, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is like best thing ever!" But he's doing these Zoom calls, so let's get in there. So I was like, "Cool, let's go."
Yeah, cool, man. Makes perfect sense. So you've done a bit of estate agent work. That's good. You've got a bit of practice.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
got some experience in the
Mhm.
field. Why have you booked the call? Like, what's the long-term goal? What are you thinking?
I mean, like I said, obviously the long-term goal will be to absolutely thrive in the sort of rent to rent and the Airbnb stuff.
Hmm.
It's stuff I absolutely love anyway. So even with obviously you know how it gets with like the estate agency stuff, right? You're just the agent. You literally get about 5 to 10% of the commission if you're lucky, and you do the legwork for about 6 to 8 months to really get that.
Hmm.
It kind of takes the element of it being rewarding away from the job ultimately. Nothing has really put me off, property itself,
Hmm.
but there definitely has been a bit of that lack of motivation simply because you just feel like you're
Cool.
not getting anything out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to thrive in the sort of Airbnb business, to thrive in the rent to rent business,
Hmm.
obviously, as mentioned, we've looked into it quite a bit, but there's just a few things that we're just seeing and we're thinking, wow, like how do people do this? This doesn't even make sense.
Yeah,
So
of course, because in the estate agent world, things are very like regimented and quite set in stone. Like
yeah, yeah.
whereas rent to rent is like you're sort of floating in between the lines a little bit,
Hmm.
operating kind of like a grey area.
Exactly. And it also, I mean, I think the thing I'm kind of looking forward to the most as well is kind of just doing stuff for myself. And I
Hmm.
know that sounds like for some people, it's like that's like their biggest fear. They like their own routine and they like to just clock in, clock out, and it's done. But
Hmm.
for me, like I can't, like it genuinely, even the thought of it excites me to know that like there's going to be a time where I'm doing stuff for myself. So it feels like you just put 110% and you definitely get that back.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like that's what I'm all about. I mean, I'm personally not very good at taking much instructions from other people. I'm a
Exactly.
bit rebellious like that, a bit mischievous. I prefer to sort of run my own sort of ship. Um,
Hmm.
there is more effort involved in doing that than just being able to clock
Exactly.
off your typical like 9 to 5, you know. So it's definitely more effort and energy, especially up front in the beginning. But
Hmm.
I guess the upside is limitless, you know, and that's the
Of
sort of
course. Yeah.
that's me the most, you know. So maybe you're more of an entrepreneur than an employee at heart, you know. Maybe that's
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you just start to come across these sort of things, like it just I don't know, like you're 5 minutes late and that has an impact, and it's like you're just hearing all of this stuff, and it's like, hey, like we're still getting to get the job done. Can we just ignore
yeah,
that? But it's like you
yeah.
can't. So yeah, I've just started to not enjoy it as much. So obviously, as mentioned, that's when we started to kind of look into the rent to rent stuff. But there's just been a few things around it that I don't know. I just can't really understand how people are doing it and killing it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, first things first, right? Like, not everyone you see online is necessarily killing it the way that you may
Yeah.
think.
Hmm. Hmm.
So always take things with a bit of pinch of salt.
Yeah.
People can project a certain image, and you never really know if they're actually doing what they say they're doing. So just be a
100%.
bit more cautious with that sort of stuff. Try and find like the truth's probably a little bit less than what they're doing, what they're saying they're doing,
100%. Yeah.
But there are still some people that are doing really well from it, and like if it can motivate you and inspire you, then great. But don't let, it sort of like make you feel like you're way behind or anything like that, because 6 months to 12 months of doing your own thing and you can really get somewhere in this game. You don't need to be
Yeah.
comparing
No,
yourself.
definitely. In that sense, like I think in that sense, like the mindset. element is definitely set because there's never an element of comparison. It's more so like that's motivation. Let's
Yeah, it seems like
take
it's
that and
progressing
fuel
well.
yourself. So
That's good. That's good. So what do you think's stopping you from getting there then yourself at the minute?
I mean, there's so much around it, right? Like, there's a few things that I just haven't been able to really get my head around, like location wise, pricing wise. There's just been a
Mhm.
few things that I just sit there thinking, like, how or what are these people doing? Like, if I'm renting a property for 3,000 a month on a good month, let's say we rent it out 20 days, I just about break even, let alone profit. So how are people doing this? Like, how does
Yeah,
it work?
of
So
course.
yeah, there's been a bit of confusing around it. Sorry.
Of course, that makes sense. I mean, it sounds like there's some gaps in your knowledge basically, which is
Mhm.
obviously understandable. You haven't done it before, that you're going to have gaps in your knowledge. That's completely normal.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you're new to it and you look at the prices of things, like they're not always going to stand out as like a good deal initially, like
Mhm.
online. Um, a lot of property is set at a certain price, and obviously your skills have to develop for you to be able to negotiate on that price, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of what we teach isn't always the service accommodation model. Like we like to rent to people on like medium term tenancies as well. And those people still pay a premium. It's just not maybe as much as the nightly rate that you would charge.
Hmm.
There are a
Hmm.
few different ways of doing it. You don't have to always do the Airbnb model. I know that's the sort of cool, trendy model at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like one of three tenant types. You know, we have some HMOs where we have like engineers that have been in there for like 4 or 5 years now,
Hmm.
paying us a premium. We also have like doctors, nurses that come and stay in some of our properties for like 3 months, 6 months, and obviously they pay a premium as well.
Hmm.
And they're not, none of those bookings have come from Airbnb or Booking.com. They're sort of relationships that we've built with companies in the area, um,
Hmm.
using other platforms, spare room, word of mouth, handing leaflets out, going and doing the legwork, you know. So there's
Of
a lot,
course. Yeah.
lot of different ways of finding tenants and these people that can pay you a premium price. It doesn't always have to be the nightly rate. So
Hmm.
when you're doing your numbers, sometimes it can look a bit like, how's there any margin for me here?
Yeah.
But I guess the gaps in your are making you look at it a different way because once you understand how to negotiate, then you wouldn't be paying £3,000. You'd be
Of
trying
course. Yeah.
to pay less than that, but
Hmm.
over a longer term. So that's kind of like the sale, the pitch to the landlord. It's like
Yeah.
we might not pay you what you're expecting to get, but over the long term, there's going to be no voids, no gaps, no like arrears. So that's going to work out to be more than what you would actually get if you were renting it directly yourself to
Hmm.
professionals, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just understanding how it works, you know, and it's like there is quite a lot to learn. It's not like something you can just pick up straight away. It does take a bit of time. Like most of my students, I tell them like 6 months is roughly the sort of time frame we like to turn them around from complete sort of novice to getting their first few deals over the line, you know. So first 2 months is normally just education, understanding the knowledge, doing the program, and then this takes another 2 months to sort of digest it and then start implementing it, you know,
Hmm.
and actually practicing it. And then, you know, that process can take 2 or 3 months before you get your first deal. So I think 6 months is a realistic time frame. That's how long it took me from not knowing anything about it to getting my first one.
Yeah.
Obviously, I got loads of rejection, you know, loads of getting told no and stuff. So that's just part of the process. But it can work for anyone who's determined, and it seems like you are, you know. So good.
Yeah, it would definitely be something to speak about between the both of us.
Yeah.
We're pretty set on like just getting it done really.
Hmm.
Um I think we're both tired of just being in the situation we're in,
What
like
does your friend do? Is she an estate agent as well, or
no, she's actually I don't actually know where her interest is rooted from. It might be from me to be fair, because we're
okay?
always talking about it.
Okay,
But she's actually in like film and TV, so she works behind the scenes
cool.
on like these like adverts,
Hmm.
sometimes films and etc. So she does all of that stuff. So it's a bit weird. She's her interest is rooted from like me constantly talking about it, seeing so much about it, and then like stuff we watch and etc.
You're more of
So
like a creative person, would you say?
she is, yeah. So I think that's where we kind of work hand in hand because it's like
Mm.
she takes over that element. I will just sit here and just go on for days and just
Yeah,
work. Whereas,
yeah.
sometimes you need someone to kind of do that element of things as
Mhm.
well. So yeah.
Oh, 100% in business, like you need both.
For
You
sure, for
need
sure.
like operations, like someone with more of like an engineering brain, you just get stuff done. but then you
literally.
also need someone to be a bit more like of a visionary, a bit more creative,
Hmm. Hmm.
like marketing and things like that. You know, you want to stand out from the crowd, and we can show you some ways that we use, but ultimately,
For
you know,
sure.
it'd be good for you to have two people's input rather than just the one. And most of our successful students are in a pair normally, like they might be like husband and wife or friends, two friends, you know, that seem to thrive more. We've got two brothers that have done really well, a couple sisters. So it does seem to be a common theme that people that do it in pairs seem to get it done quicker, you know.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that will be the aim for us as well. So yeah, it would definitely be something to talk about.
Cool.
Um, yeah.
Any more questions there for me?
I mean, obviously the biggest question that we both had was firstly location. Like, how do you really determine the correct location?
Mm-hmm.
Not that there is a correct location, because obviously that is biased as well, depending
Mm-hmm.
on who you're catering for, what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But location has always been a question for us, and obviously price as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like I said, obviously as you mentioned, negotiating, of course, is like
Yeah.
the one way that you really make stuff happen. But it's like how are we supposed to really, like there's just
Well, where are you based?
we're in North London, so
Okay.
yeah, like we're quite central in that sense, to be
Yeah.
fair. Like it takes us about half an hour to get into central London,
Yeah.
20 minutes away from like King's Cross and stuff. So like, we've kind of thought about certain locations ourselves. Like we're very, very close to like the Tottenham Stadium, for
Mm-hmm.
example, extremely close to the Wembley Stadium, for
Mm-hmm.
example. Like these things we've thought about and said, these are kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, potentially areas we'd want to cover, but then of course
Absolutely.
like we know like the booming areas are like central London and no 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 no
Yeah.
no no. So it's like,
Yeah.
but then no, when we're checking numbers, it's just not making sense. Like if I'm
Yeah.
paying like 4 grand
London.
a month for the rent and trying to rent it out, it's like
Yeah. London numbers in general are just expensive, aren't they? I mean, would you be willing to go a bit further up, like from North London, like maybe a little bit outside of London, maybe like
we
half
would be.
an hour
Yeah,
away?
we would be absolutely. I mean, we've got family all around and etc. Anyway, sometimes like going to see my nephews takes me about an hour, so I'm happy
Mm.
to do that for business. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
a problem. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I just find that sometimes outside of London the margins are a little bit better,
yeah.
uh, because there's a bit more negotiation room as well.
Hmm.
It's like all of mine are 150 miles away in Wales, you know, like I was trying to get started in London initially. I was like looking at places like Tooting and places like that.
Hmm.
Was the transport links into London and stuff, but I was getting quoted like 3 grand for like a 5 bedroom HMO per month, and obviously
Yeah, it's just like.
2 months up front, and then 3 grand on furniture. You're looking at like 8 to 10 grand for your first deal.
Hmm.
Whereas driving down the motorway and going to Wales, I was renting like 5 bedroom HMOs for like £1,200 a month, giving the landlord 2 months up front. It's like 2.5 grand, and then going to IKEA, spending 2 grand, and I've got a deal there and done for 4 grand basically, you know. So
So
my
is
money.
that what you'd recommend in that sense? Like obviously starting in, well, obviously London in itself is booming. Like yeah, everyone is looking for that. But would you recommend maybe like the initial deal or two to be maybe like, I don't know, a bit further out at first, and then once you
Yeah.
kind of start to get the hang of things, you can still branch into London as
Yeah.
obviously the margin's still there. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I would advise that, yeah, because I think you want to go where your money can work as hard for you as possible. And
hmm.
the upfront cost in London might, I don't know what your budget is, but it might take all of your initial startup capital. Whereas maybe you could go and get two deals outside of London. One might not be as good as you wanted it to be, and the other one might be brilliant. So you kind of like hedge the bets a little bit, and then
Hmm.
okay, let's concentrate more on the one that's doing well, see if that landlord's got any more properties, try and target more like that. Um, the whole game is about testing, right? Like business in general, you're constantly testing stuff, testing, and getting feedback, getting data, and then narrowing down on your niche and the type of properties you want to target. And the best way to get the data and the information is to sort of spread out a bit and try and
Hmm.
on as many as possible. But if you can take on two or three for the same price as taking on one, in 6 months' time, you're going to know exactly where you want to be at and the type of property you want to target, you know?
For sure, yeah. And I mean, in that sense, obviously, I don't know where you're based literally, but obviously, like I said, we're in North London. Um,
I'm in South London.
oh, there we go. And when you say like outside London, what sort of areas are we sort of thinking? So obviously we can kind of like have a look from
I mean,
there.
I'm just top of my head, I'm thinking like North London. So, how far is Watford from you? Reading,
Not
Reading.
too far. Yeah,
Uh,
about an hour and a half.
yeah, like these types of areas are really good for development, and like the prices are a bit cheaper than being more central based.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of like contractors, the redevelopment happening, the type of tenants that you want to target. I imagine there'd be a lot of HMO properties as well, which is the type of ideal avatar that you'd like to be targeting as well. So, and a bit more wiggle room with the negotiation, like you want to be targeting like tired landlords, basically, sort of who are in their 50s, sort of
Oh
60s.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there's going to be loads of those people in those types of areas who've just been managing their house for 20, 30 years, and they just want someone with a bit more energy to come and take over.
Hmm.
Whereas London, obviously, everyone's got such a high mortgage, and so the bills are so high that they have to sort of demand the top price, and there's not much negotiation for you. So you kind of would have to do Airbnb in London, I guess, to try and make it worthwhile, like the nightly rates, just because you're going to be paying so much out. You have to
Hmm.
sweat the asset as much as possible. So
Hmm.
it kind of removes the other two options that I was discussed earlier with you, like the medium term slash
Yeah.
the term
Hmm.
come and pay a premium. It's a bit more difficult, I'd say, in central.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Um. Yeah, I can't. I don't know if we actually had. I think a question or two that we had set, but um.
Probably come back to you as soon as you come off the call, more than likely.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And you know what? I know exactly how I am, so I always take notes. Like I've got like 700 note pages open because I have to.
Good.
um,
That's how I am as well. It's good to make notes.
for sure. And obviously, when as we mentioned already, because this was one of the questions.
Hmm.
As we mentioned already, obviously negotiating will be like crucial
Hmm.
during the entire process. And
Hmm.
is that going to be mentioned in part of the course, like how you potentially, if possible, negotiate like no deposit deals, or
Mm.
you negotiate deals where it's like minimal amounts so you could really get going, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So we've got well, basically a few modules that are based around negotiation. Um,
Hmm.
but there's also like recordings of me like live negotiating with landlords. You could just listen back to like 10, 15-minute conversations of me like trying to remove all their objections. They're sort of firing questions at me, and I'm just like bouncing back with
With
solving their
responsibility, yeah.
problems. Yeah, so you could just listen to that stuff and make notes like you like to, and then try and just copy it. That's what I just tell people to just copy what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, there'll be more than enough info in there for you. Everything we're doing will be in the course. It's just having a mentor, I guess, would be the pro of going with the whole program.
Hmm.
But you may not need that, and if you decided you needed it later on down the line, then I'm not going anywhere, and you could jump in at any point.
Hmm.
So
Okay. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much what we wanted to cover. So
hmm
thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
no problem.
Um, as mentioned, obviously, I need to touch base with her
Of course,
probably later today, and then we go from there.
yeah, of
Are we
course.
able to join through like the website? Is that, or
Yeah,
should we
so
drop you
so
a
after
call?
this call, you'll get an email,
Hmm.
and it will just basically tell you, like in summary, what you'd get, and it will give you the two options of either joining just the course or getting onto the program, the prices and the links to pay and join as well. So you'll get all of that in an email. It does keep going into people's junk because it's the first time, obviously, we've emailed you. So
First, yeah.
just have a
Okay.
look at that. That will
No,
come
I will. Yeah.
minutes after the call, and then
Mhm.
chat with your friend, and hopefully I'll see you in the course or the program at some point.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very, very much. Like I said, I really appreciate it.
No
And
problem.
yeah, I do have a strong feeling that you will at least see us on the course for the time being.
Great,
And then we
great,
go from there.
great, fantastic. Well, it's been nice getting to know you.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
Hopefully, I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, bye.
Bye.